Hello dear students, my name is Vikram Nalode. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. I am working at SATCO Yatra, Ichilganji. In previous lectures, we started about basics of steering system, and we have covered some of the gear mechanisms of steering system. So in today's lecture, we will continue with the further part. So let's start today's lecture. uh, the content of for today's lecture will be the objectives and the linkage systems. So objectives of today's lecture is to study various linkages of steering mechanism. So we'll discuss the linkage system of the steering mechanism. Generally, steering linkages, the linkage is a connection between the steering gearbox and the front wheels, as we have already discussed about steering wheel and other parts, other units of steering systems. So linkage can be considered it is a connection between steering gearbox and front wheel. In other ways, it forms a connection of various links between steering box and front wheels, as we discussed right now. It is meant to transfer the movement in the sense side to side or front to rear movement of pitman arm, that is also called drop arm, into left to right movement of the at the wheel. The form of steering linkage depends on the vehicle type. So we can't consider that a similar kind of steering linkage is available in all type of vehicles. So it depends upon the type of the vehicle, and according to the type, steering linkage can also be different. That is whether the vehicle has independent front suspension or a rigid axle type front suspension. So let's discuss about steering linkages. So we know that steering linkage, it is a connection between the steering gearbox and the front wheel. So in this diagram, we have already discussed about the steering wheel. So steering wheel through which driver rotates, and this rotation in the form of steering shaft inside the steering column. So it transmits this motion, and via this gearbox it is converted into the linear motion in this manner. Linear in the sense we can say the angular motion of the wheels itself. So various parts, various units of steering mechanism we have covered in previous lecture. The different types of steering linkage mechanism are available, and each consists of following essential component. So first is the pitman arm, or it is considered as the drop arm. So here I will change the color first. Okay, so this is the drop arm, or we can say this is the pitman arm. So here this is the drop arm in connection with the further part of drag link and this gearbox connected with the steering column and steering shaft. So pitman arm, it is also called drop arm, as it is mentioned here. It transmits the output torque from the steering gear into a force at the drag link. This is the drag link. The larger end of the drop arm is taper splined to the sector shaft of the steering gear, and it is fixed by a nut, whereas a ball joint is used to connect its smaller end to the drag link. So this is connected with the drag link with the help of the ball joint. Then next is drag link. It is a further connection. It is connected with the pitman arm or drop arm. So next is the drag link. So you just observe, this is the drag link. Here in this manner drag link is shown in this category. So drag link or link rod it makes the connection between the drop arm and the steering arm. Like this is the steering arm, so this connects the drop arm with the steering arm. The drag link may be one piece forging having ball joint sockets at the ends. So the end of the link rod, these are occupying the ball joint to connect all the units at its ends. Then next is the steering arm. So you observe this represents here the steering arm. Steering arm, it is connected to the steering knuckle with the help of the keyway, a locking taper and a nut. Its end on the side of drag link has a tapered hole into which fits the ball stud on the drag link. The steering arm converts the drag link force into the turning moment torque, which rotates the right spindle, wheel and tire about the kingpin. So kingpin is covered in the introductory part of previous chapter. Then next is stub axle and track rod. So here this is the stub axle, this axle which is connected with the wheels and occupying other connections also, and along with that track rod is also present. So this part will be covered one by one. So the stub axle is attached to the end of link rod arm and the wheels are mounted on the stub axle, as this is the axle over which wheels are mounted. The forced track rod, tie rod arm of the stub axle is bolted to the wheel axis, and at each end of the track rod are the ball joints. So with the help of the ball joint, these are connected at the ends. These joints are so designed that any wear or misadjustment is compensated by expanding spring. The track rod is also provided with an adjuster for changing its length if needed while adjusting the wheel alignment, that is for keeping the front axle toy in within the specified limits. Then we'll discuss about the knuckle arm and steering knuckle. So you consider this portion. I will change the color of a highlighter here to yellow. So this is the knuckle arm. Generally knuckle arm transmit the moment of drag link, this one, to the front wheel via steering knuckles. So all these moments are transmitted via knuckle arm. The steering knuckles pivot around the ball joints or kingpin of the suspension arms to steer the front wheels. Obviously the steering knuckles attend to the following tasks. So some of the tasks of steering knuckle are to support the load applied to the front wheels, and the function as a rotational axis of the wheels. So all about knuckle arms and steering knuckle. Then next is the steering stops. So about steering stops, if I want to tell that these are the device provided to limit the angular deflection of front wheels. This is to avoid the rubbing of tires against the frame and against the fenders, which could cause undue wear and tear of tires. So these steering stops very helpful to avoid the wear of tires with other parts. These steering stops are generally provided at the two locations. First location, path of motion of steering arm or drop arm. Then path of motion of steering knuckle. So these are the two places where steering stops are provided. Means one is drop arm and second is the steering knuckle. So all these discuss about the general arrangement and layout of the steering system, steering mechanism, through which we understood what various essential components are there for the steering linkages. So let's discuss about the types of steering linkages. There are two types. First is steering linkages for rigid axle front suspension. So we have already discussed that there are rigid axles as well as independent suspension system. So again I will describe in very short manner about the steering system. This is the steering wheel, and that is connected to the steering column. Inside the steering shaft is present. This is the steering box, and this is the drop arm, that is also called pitman arm, that is connected with the steering box with the help of cross shaft. Then this is the drag link or link rod, and this is the link rod arm. So here we discuss about stub axle and track rod in previous slide. So this portion, we can say this is the stub axle, and this which is parallel to this is track rod, that is also called the tie rod. And at the ends we have discussed many times. So at the ends these are connected with the ball joints at different ends. So this diagram generally it shows the steering linkage. The drop arm, that is pitman arm, you just observe in this diagram, is rigidly connected to the cross shaft. This is the cross shaft of the steering gear at its lower end, while its lower end is connected to the link rod through a ball joint. To the other joint of link rod, it is connected to the link rod arm. So this link rod is connected with the link rod arm through a ball joint. Attached rigidly to the other end of the link rod arm is the stub axle on which road wheel is mounted. So you just see this is the stub axle over which road wheels are mounted. Each stub axle has a forged track rod. This is the track rod arm rigidly bolted to the wheel axis. Two other ends of the track rod arms are connected to the track rod by means of ball joints, as shown in this diagram. The design of these ball joints is such that the expanding spring compensates for wear or misadjustments. An adjuster is also provided in the track rod to change its length for adjusting wheel alignment. So in similar manner, one picture is also there which represents the rigid axle front suspension system, which has no any other difference, but it elaborates in this manner. Means you can say this is the stub axle. The axis is provided for the stub axle which is holding the wheels, and this is the steering arm which is connected with the drag link or link rod with the help of the ball joints, and this is the track rod. So you see these two ends of the track rods are connected with the stub axle with the help of the ball joints. That motion is also shown in this linear manner. Here this is the steering wheel which is used by the driver to give a rotation, and that rotation from the steering column inside that this driving shaft or steering shaft is present with the help of this steering box which is connected with the drag link at the end with the help of the ball joint via the cross shaft. Here this is the drop arm. So this is the similar diagram if we compare it with the previous one. So it has just simplified the process. The steering gear about steering gear means this is the gearbox. The steering gear provides mechanical advantage so that only a small effort is required at the steering wheel to apply a much large force to the steering linkage. Moreover, it also provides the desired velocity ratio so that much smaller movement of the stub axle is obtained with large angular movement of the steering wheel. When the steering wheel is turned, the swinging action of drop arm imparts a near linear movement to the link rod. This movement is transmitted through the link rod arm to the stub axle so as to turn the latter about its pivot, which may be a kingpin or ball joints. The other wheel is steered through the track rod. Thus, only one wheel is positively steered. So, this is all about the type of steering linkage has rigid axle front suspension. So, its next type, that is steering linkage, is for independent suspension system. So that is also very important because it has independent suspension. In case of conventional rigid suspension, the main axle beam ensures the movement of stub axle in the horizontal plane only, but in this, therefore, there is no vertical deflection of the suspension, and hence there is no change in effective track rod length. However, in the case of independent suspension, the two stub axles can move up and down independent of each other due to which distance between ball joints end of the two track and arm is continuously varying. So I will tell various parts of independent suspension system. Here, this is the track rod arm, these are the tie rods, and here this is the relay rod, and here this is the idler arm. This is the drop arm connected with the steering gear with the help of the cross shaft, and this is the steering column consisting of the steering shaft inside the steering column, and steering wheel is connected. So how it is very important to discussion in case of a conventional or rigid axle front suspension, while taking turn or having motion on any type of surface of road, equally the bumps, equally the jerks are transmitted to both of the wheels. But here, if one of the wheel is passing over any kind of bump, then other part of the wheel, it is independent of the vibration absorbed by the one of the wheel. Here, on account of this single track rod as in conventional system described, it cannot be used in this case. This diagram depicts one linkage for independent suspension where the above difficulty is avoided. Here, three-piece track rod is used. Three-piece track rod is used. You just observe here. The center portion being called the relay rod, this one, which is connected at one end to the idler arm, supported on body structure, and to the drop arm of the steering gear at the other end through ball joints. The relay rod is restricted to move in horizontal plane only. Movement in vertical plane is provided by the outer portion with the tie rods about the end ball joints. So in today's lecture, we have discussed the types of linkages, steering linkage, the parts of the essential components of steering linkages and the types like steering linkages for rigid axle front suspension as well as steering linkages for independent suspension. I hope you understand the concept of linkage is used in the steering system. So in coming video lectures we will discuss about some of the power steering as well as the some contents of stub axle we will cover. Thank you so much.